Tonight, one national security expert is sounding the alarm about a growing threat to our country.
CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips explains.
Bradley Bowman leads the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. He tells me how in the past, political division in the U.S. carried little to no consequence to national security. But that time is not now.
This is scary what we're doing right now. By our own divisiveness, we are making ourselves less safe.
Military analyst Brad Bowman believes the current division is unprecedented and the implications stretch well beyond our borders.
Russia has been trying to hurt and divide democracy, American democracy, since the 1920s. So this is not new. What they most want is they want to pit the extremes against each other. So, they want to pit the far right against the far left, and so that we tear each other apart. They want to say that our authoritarian model, their authoritarian model, is better than ours. Look at America. Look at that horrific debate. They can't even talk to each other in a civil way. Look at the riots. Look at the violence. And so we really are playing right into their hands.
Bowman says diversity is America's greatest strength, what he calls its center of gravity. It's why he's critically concerned.
The scary divisions that we're seeing, in my view, along racial lines, economic lines, party lines, to me are our adversaries, particularly Russia and increasingly China, view as an opportunity to attack as our center of gravity of unity. Your political adversary is not your enemy. And if that's the way you think, you're helping Putin more than you're helping our country. And I think you need to hear that directly.
Bradley points to Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and further alleged interference now in 2020. But he says that's just one example of how the cancer of division spreading in our land leaves us more susceptible to outside influence.
Unify your team, divide the other team, and that's how you win. And gosh darn it, we're dividing our own team right now. We can't be our own worst enemies. We should not do Vladimir Putin's work for him.
Bowman is quick to point out that there is room for robust disagreement within our democracy. He says that's not what weakens us. The problem is when we see fellow Americans as our enemies simply because they have different views. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Eric. FaithWire.com's Dan Andros joins us now with a look at a biblical approach to addressing the divisiveness in our nation.
And Dan, this was the topic of your latest Faith versus Culture on the CBN News Channel. What does the Bible say, Dan, about being divided politically, culturally?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. And yeah, we thought this was an important discussion to have because it is more divided now than ever. And I think after the election, it's probably only going to get worse than it's before it gets better. And so I think it's important to give a biblical look at how we as Christians should be responding to this. And I think one of the first things to understand, culturally, the division, I think in Luke 12, Jesus makes it plain that we should expect division. This should not be surprising to us at all. He says in verse 51, do you think that I've come to give peace on earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. So he explicitly states it, that we should expect it. And he, of course, uses the illustrations of families being divided against one another to make the point. So we should absolutely not be surprised, first and foremost, with division we're seeing. We should expect it.
Dan, I want to ask, I think Paul teaches, if possible, live peaceably among all men. How do you balance that against the verse that you just mentioned about expecting division in the world today?
Yeah, well, it is a tough one to do because, as we said, there's so much division out there. But the other kind of division, John, that we have is among Christians as well. So there's two things that we have to balance there. So, yeah, we've got to learn to live peaceably as much as we can with our brothers. But even more importantly is that unity amongst ourselves as Christians. And so we have to also, focus